It's an interesting time for business. Tariff and trade policies are dynamic, supply chains are squeezed, and cash flow, it's tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time, you are in a little bit of hurt. So how do you get full visibility and adapt in real time? Over 42,000 businesses trust NetSuite by Oracle, your AI-powered business management suite. It brings accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR all under one roof. NetSuite is the #1 cloud ERP for a reason. It's your single source of truth, giving you the data and control you need to move quickly. Real-time forecasting helps you move into the future with confidence, and with AI built in, you can automate the busy work and focus on strategy. NetSuite helps you see what's stuck, what it's costing you, and how to pivot fast. If I were running a business with a lot of moving parts, I'd use NetSuite for full control over everything. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/SPI. That's netsuite.com/SPI. The perfect product launch. It's the goal for every brand marketer. High heat, fast sellout, and fans posting recipes like trophies. What do Sydney Sweeney's soap drop, Taylor Swift's tickets, and your next launch have in common? Well, they're not bought, they're bragged about. Fanfare turns your drop into a moment. Fanfare cues real fans, blocks bots, and builds launch experiences worth screenshotting. Want hype without the heartbreak? Get Fanfare's 5-step hype drop playbook with our proven success formula and make your next launch unforgettable at fanfare.io/playbook. Again, fanfare.io/playbook.
Podcasting is probably going to be one of the most overpowered just things to do in the next year or two, just because now you actually have discoverability with your podcast. Part of the reason why I'm doing this is so I can get the content from Pat afterwards, and then I can chop up this content, chop it up into a bunch of shorts, and then the shorts will lead to discoverability on YouTube to my longer form, podcast clips, and then it will lead to hopefully them subscribing to the podcast, right? So people that complained about podcasting not having discoverability before, that is no longer a problem. And that's why like the Mr. Beasts of the world are going on these podcast tours right now, because they're like infinite content, right?
Happy 2023. Happy New Year to you and your family. I hope all is well and all is safe. We're off to the races because today we have a special guest, Eric Siu from Marketing School Podcast. He and his partner Neil have hosted that show for quite a while. It's one of my favorites. And Neil's been on the show before. It's about time Eric comes on because we're talking trends and what's working today and this year in 2023 for marketing. We talk about all kinds of things from social media platforms that are underutilized that you should be paying attention to mergers and acquisitions and everything in between. So get ready because this is a very, very value-packed episode. And we got a lot of examples from Eric as well to support what is working today too. So make sure you stick around. This is the first episode of the year and we're going to start off with a bang. So here he is, Eric Siu from the Marketing School Podcast and marketingschool.io.
Welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast, where it's all about working hard now so you can sit back and reap the benefits later. And now your host. He wants Disney to make more original stories rather than coming up with more sequels. Pat Flynn.
With running your own business, legal questions always come with the territory. Like, can I use this contract or agreement? What do I do if a client doesn't pay? Am I even structured the right way for taxes? Instead of Googling your way through legal landmines, imagine having a law firm ready to address your business's legal needs without the sticker shock. That's what you get with Legal Shield's small business plans. Legal Shield helps entrepreneurs access real legal help on contract reviews, collection letters, business formation guidance, and even help navigating IRS audits. Members can schedule consultations, upload documents through the app, and get support from a provider law firm that knows small business laws in your state. Plus, consultations on taxes or trademarks help you stay ahead of potential problems. And if a client is late on a payment, Legal Shield steps in with professional collection letters so you can protect your hard-earned revenue, all for a fraction of the price of hiring a lawyer on your own. Go to LegalShield.com/SPI or call 833-570-9980 to learn more and get big business legal support without a big business budget. That's LegalShield.com/SPI. While DIY website tools are everywhere, most fall short on design and performance. Hit publish. Framer ships your site worldwide in seconds. No code, no compromises. Framer is a powerful, user-friendly platform that delivers developer-level results without writing a single line of code. Make your designs move and convert with Framer. Framer brings your site to life with powerful animations, dynamic content handling, and a design-first approach that helps your site stand out. Framer is the design-first, no-code website builder that lets anyone ship a production-ready site in minutes. Browse hundreds of pixel-perfect templates or even design something of your own on a totally blank canvas. Add bold animations like appear effects, text effects, scroll and looping animations, and much more in seconds. And it's free to start. The built-in AI handles the heavy lifting of generating starter layouts and can even translate your entire site to any language. On the back end, you'll get responsive breakpoints, built-in hosting, a flexible CMS, and privacy-friendly analytics. Ready to build a site that looks hand-coded without hiring a developer? Launch your site for free at Framer.com and use code SPI to get your first month of Pro on the house. That's Framer.com, promo code SPI. Framer.com, promo code SPI. Rules and restrictions may apply. Eric, welcome to the Smart Passive Income Podcast. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Yeah, super excited to be here, Pat. Thanks for having me, man.
I know we've crossed paths a few times, and this has been a long time coming. You know, hundreds of episodes in. I don't know why we haven't had you on the show yet, because you and your partner Neil are just a wealth of knowledge. Obviously, we've had Neil on the show before, but for what I've seen from afar, you've been doing some really amazing things. And before we get into really just crunching into what's working in marketing today, I'd love to get a little bit of a background story on you and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, sure. Again, thanks for having me. So my name's Eric Su, marketer, podcaster, and early stage investor. My main business is an ad agency called Single Grain. Over the years, we've bought a couple other agencies as well. I just look at them as great cash flow businesses that allow me to either put it back into the business or invest in other cool stuff. And then I just love creating content because I just love learning and teaching. I mean, same thing as you, Pat. You've been doing this for a while. Yeah, I mean, that's what I do at a high level. And yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's what it is.
Awesome. I like it. Quick and fast so we can get into the value here. So 2023 is on the horizon, if not here already for people listening. The environment of business has definitely changed since you and I started this thing. You know, back in the day, it was blogging and some ads here and there. And now the environment's seemingly completely different. What is working today for your clients and for you as far as like getting attention and converting that attention into dollars?
I think I'm actually kind of glad that things are getting harder again, because, you know, with the iOS changes, marketing has very much become marketing's become a blue ocean. And what I mean by that is, marketing is harder now, right? And most people don't want to do hard. And so that's what makes the ocean blue. It's not as competitive because like a red ocean means there's a lot of blood in the water, right? And so that's good because creativity is the X factor when it comes to marketing, and also leveraging data, using the data to tell a story. And what that all kind of boils down to now, like I did an event recently in Beverly Hills, and whether it's Alex Hormozi and Layla, you know, speaking about building their media empire, and then Cody Sanchez speaking as well. And my friend that just sold his company for $250 million, that came from him building his immediate assets as well. And so what I mean by that is, you know, leveraging the strength of organic social. It's also and we can unpack this later. It's also like, okay, leveraging organic social, but also from an M&A standpoint, what attention can I go out there and buy? And we can talk about that, but also building community, right? So, you know, a lot of people talk about building audience, like I want more followers, blah, blah, blah. Building an audience is talking one to many, or usually like two people to many, like how you might be doing it on this podcast or how I might be doing on marketing school. But when I think about audience, that's people talking to each other, and how you want to build in a retention mechanism, especially if you're a subscription type of course or software. You want people to come for maybe the initial benefit, but you want them to stay for the community. So all these things kind of tie in with each other, and I'm happy to unpack each of them.
Yeah, I'm glad you're talking about community, because we at SPI are investing heavily into community, hiring for community, putting a lot of resources into creatively offering community as the product. And like you said, it's not just one to many anymore. It's many to many, hopefully, right? Or even few to few, you know, creating a strong community. I know you have, for example, your mastermind, and you've brought a small group of people together who pay a high level dollar to get access to each other and have a lot of value shared that way. We'll talk more about that too. But let's talk about what you said about leveraging organic social. I think we've all known that social is a way for us to get eyes and ears onto our work, but you know, social today is different than social before. Like, can you expand on that and get into more detail of what exactly do you mean by social? Do you mean specific platforms, and how do we utilize those platforms to build awareness?
So I'll speak on this from the context of B2B, because I'm an agency, right? And you can also use this for B2C as well if you're selling courses. Social typically has a bit where, you know, things there's ebbs and flows, right? For like each channel. And sometimes something will blow up. Like right now, TikTok's hot, and then, you know, YouTube Shorts is hot, Instagram Reels, but also LinkedIn is actually really hot right now because believe it or not, there's only 2% of users that post to LinkedIn, whereas compared to Instagram, 87% of users post there. And so Microsoft owns LinkedIn, and then they're incentivized to try to jack up that reach more because they want to make that investment work, right? It's about figuring out A, where's your marketing 101, where's your audience hanging out, and then B, like where's the organic reach actually really strong. And so you can call it organic social, but in B2B, people also call it dark social, meaning that dark social just means like, hey, post, take advantage of the reach, but like don't even try to measure it, because like trying to measure every one of these channels is you're just going to drive yourself crazy, even though like as marketers we try to measure everything. So that's what it is at a high level, and I'm happy to talk about like the top 5 that I'm focused on right now.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that. I've never heard of that term dark social, but dark meaning you just be there, don't necessarily try to analyze heavily, but we still want to know like what's converting and such. So what is our approach to, for example, let's just choose LinkedIn. I'm sure that's in your top 5. And I keep hearing this over and over again as well. So I would imagine for B2B, it's definitely important, but for also B2C, depending on who C is, like for me, for example, we at SPI, we've been trying to get more heavy into LinkedIn because our audience are entrepreneurs and they are often on LinkedIn. And like you said, there aren't a very many group of people there who are posting a lot of value. So how would we, for example, use LinkedIn best? Is it post once a day and just kind of like how are we providing value there, and how do we actually utilize it for business?
So dark social, I'll give you an example, 2 practical business examples. One guy built his agency to about $19 million a year in revenue, so annual revenue off of LinkedIn. It took him about 3 years to do it. His name's, I think it's Chris Walker, and his company is Refine Labs. And he just will post about every day or so, just talking about how a lot of it's like how dark social has been working for him, right? And the reason they call it dark social is because usually when you post like a tweet or like a LinkedIn post, it kind of just goes into the ether and you're not sure like what happens to it. There are different tools I'm happy to talk about that where you can track things. But I'll share one example from today. Literally, I just posted a screenshot of a tweet and my caption was agree with a question mark. And so far on that one, I have 744 likes on it, 57 comments, about 50,000 impressions on it on LinkedIn. And to give you the math on that, LinkedIn typically on a CPM basis, so cost per 1,000 impressions, they charge about $33. So if you did $33 times 50, I've already gotten $1,650 in terms of dollars, in terms of value, right? So $1,650 for free. And that's going to continue to compound. I've had some posts this year that have got like 500,000 impressions. So that's about $16,000, right? And so in some months, I'll actually get 3 to 4 million impressions completely for free. And I'm happy to talk about some tactics as well.
Yeah. So is that just a brand awareness play, for example? Like, yes, it would take you that much money, but you're getting that for free because you were just there and posting and providing value. So how does that translate to dollars back into our business, right? It's one thing to say, sure, that equated to, $16,000 worth of views, but how does that ultimately help you? You're building brand awareness, but then what? Is there a follow-up? Is there something that happens next?
I think you and I both come from a direct response marketing background. And so for me, I've had to disconnect myself from trying to like focus on conversions too much and just focus on the brand piece, which is trying to grow more awareness on the YouTube side, the podcasting side, on the LinkedIn side. I will say, I'll give you a concrete example here. Actually, later today, the agency team's talking to a large crypto exchange. I would just say they're a top 5 crypto exchange. And they reached out because their CMO was like, hey, like I keep seeing your stuff over and over. Like we actually might be looking for an agency to help us with stuff. That's a very practical example. So oftentimes people will say like, I'm seeing your stuff. And so last week, I was at a YPO conference. So YPO is like a community of entrepreneurs. A handful of people are like, they saw me at the conference. Like, hey, like I actually see most of your LinkedIn stuff. It's not even the podcasting stuff that's actually getting my attention now, right? So those are two practical examples.
Sure. So definitely just an awareness of A, who you are, and B, the kinds of things you have to offer. So how would we optimize our brand awareness from a messaging standpoint? Because part of our struggle at SPI is we have so many things we could talk about, so many things we could offer. Is it better to niche down, for example, when posting organically and not spreading your message too wide? Because yes, on one hand, we want to share all the things to cast a wider net, but I would imagine that for what you could become known for, it kind of dilutes that message if you go too far and wide, right? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So for me, because it's an ad agency, it's a marketing agency, and I have a podcast called Marketing School, and all I my YouTube, all I talk about is marketing. For me, it's easy to just say, I'll probably 80% of the time focus on marketing, and then maybe 20% of the time I'm focused on business and startups. I think for you, it sounds like you're mostly focused on founders, correct?
A lot of startups and founders, but not necessarily the ones who go get venture backed, but the bootstrapped startup kind of person.
Boom. Okay, that's your positioning, right? It's the bootstrap founders mentality. So I have a friend, his name's Nathan Ladka, and he focuses on bootstrap SaaS founders. So that's like super specific. I think you focus on bootstrap founders and saying like having that spiky point of view. So I have a friend, her name's Wes Cow, and then
from Maven.
Yeah, Maven. I don't know if you did a Maven course too, but like it's the whole idea is like saying something that's a little controversial. Like, those that rely on raising venture capital are weak, right? I'm not saying you should write that, but like that's going to get people to start talking, and like people are going to add their feedback. Engagement loop just starts.
I like that. So to bring that up again and resurface it, a spiky point of view. This is something that Wes from Maven had coined. She had been on a guest on the podcast before. We've actually done a cohort-based course through Maven at one point. And we really love that. Matt and I use that terminology all the time. Spiky point of view. What is the spiky thing that's going to get a person to go, whoa, wait, okay, like I hear you. That's your position. Let's talk about this. And again, that builds awareness to the thing, because to your point, if you don't have spiky points of view, if you just do what everybody else is saying or just kind of what's expected, well, then you kind of blend in. And the whole idea of brand awareness is to stand out. So I really love that. And that's a great lesson to take forward. Okay, so we talked about LinkedIn. What other platforms socially for brand awareness are you kind of exploring or putting yourself on?
By the way, before we move on to the next one, I'll just say for LinkedIn, one of the key things is people talk about engagement pods. And so like there are very spammy, what an engagement pod is like is you have a group of people in and they're like all boosting each other's content, right? I always like to look at what people are doing from like a black hat perspective, where it's like, really like, kind of looks maybe a little below board, but do it in a white hat way, right? And so there are engagement pods that are out there where you have a group of entrepreneurs they're writing like really good content, and then they'll send the content to each other in the beginning of the day, and then they'll just like it and they'll comment on it, right? And that will like get the engagement going. I know some people might say, okay, that's like really against the terms or whatever, but if it's like you're actually commenting, like it's actually like a legit comment, and you're not just like putting emojis or whatever, I find that these engagement pods typically will go a long way. Just do it in a white hat way.
Yeah, I've heard that strategy before. It's like, I remember when blog, gosh, what were they called? They were like, you could set up your own blog networks essentially to help bring backlinks back to your website. And it's like, okay, you shouldn't do that, but that is being done because backlinks work. Cool. How else might we get backlinks to work for us and build those relationships so that we do genuinely get those backlinks and not have to sort of black hat our way there. So what I'm hearing is, and this could likely happen, and I think happens, I've heard it happen on other platforms as well, where you have a group of people who you're going to be there to look at each other's stuff, genuinely read it, genuinely respond and reply to it, to, as a byproduct of that, kickstart the engagement that can happen on those posts and platforms. And you kind of do that for each other. It's when it becomes just more machine-like and the human elements are removed that it then becomes sort of like, okay, this is a little iffy here, or gray, or even black. So I appreciate you saying that, and thank you. So LinkedIn, okay, cool. That's like the fifth person in the last 2 weeks who's like said LinkedIn. So it's like ingrained in my brain now. What else? Where else?
Yep. So I was debating on which, like a fairly obvious one is short form. So I'll go quickly on this one because I feel like a lot of you've probably talked about this quite a bit, and I'll move to Twitter next. But the reason I'm even bringing short form up right now, especially those of you that have a podcast, I believe podcasting is probably going to be one of the most overpowered just things to do in the next year or two, maybe longer than that, just because now you actually have discoverability with your podcast, meaning that, especially for YouTube shorts, let's say Pat and I are doing this podcast right now, like part of the reason why I'm doing this is so I can get the content from Pat afterwards, and then I can chop up this content, chop it up into a bunch of shorts, and then the shorts will lead to discoverability on YouTube to my longer form, podcast clips, and then it will lead to hopefully them subscribing to the podcast, right? So people that complained about podcasting not having discoverability before, that is no longer a problem. And that's why like the Mr. Beast of the world and like a lot of people, they're going on these podcast tours right now because they're like, infinite content, right? Especially if you do like one of those like Lex Friedman 8-hour podcasts, right? You can have a ton of content there. So short form, we've kind of beaten that to death. I'm just saying like, use that angle, but with podcasts.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Twitter to me is really interesting because you have some of the smartest people in the world hanging out on Twitter, right? It's an open graph, meaning that, if a post actually does really well, it's just going to blow up. And in some cases, you might get a couple 100,000 views, couple million views on it, right? I remember I had a friend, he wrote a tweet storm that just blew up. He actually ended up on CNBC, and he got interviewed on his stuff popped up on TechCrunch. I think that post basically got 20 million impressions or so. So I think it's kind of the same idea with LinkedIn, but you have to make sure that you're posting natively, right? So what I mean by that is on Twitter, what tends to do well are these threads. And you can do the engagement pod thing as well, that works. But threads where you're sharing proprietary data. I've had threads where I talk about how I've built $1 billion network, right? And I share a lot of tactics in there. And those might take me a couple hours to write. And I remember that post itself got it did decent. It got a couple 100,000 impressions. But even though my background is in SEO, it's actually really hard to grow from an SEO standpoint. And I'll talk about that in a second. But going back to Twitter, it's you do something well there, you do something well on LinkedIn, you get a couple 100,000 impressions. That's really good. It's hard to get that anywhere else. And so I think if your audience is hanging out, especially B2B, or it's in some cases B2C, Twitter makes a lot of sense. Just make sure that you're thinking about posting natively. And then the other thing, here's a little hack for you. If you have a thread that does really well on Twitter, then you can take that thread, make it into a carousel. So you can use Canva for that, make it into a carousel to post as a PDF onto LinkedIn. And those carousels do really well on LinkedIn for whatever reason.
Yeah, it reminds me of a tactic that Alex Hermosi, who you mentioned earlier, does, where he uses Twitter as sort of his brainstorming ground. And sometimes they're single posts, sometimes they're threads. But if it starts to take off, that's a sign that, okay, people like this thing that I just said. Let me turn it into a short form video. Then let's make it into a podcast and let's put it onto Instagram and such. It's interesting how taking screenshots of a tweet looks familiar on Instagram now. It's just something you see. And the carousels are great because that provides an engagement opportunity with the swiping, and then that triggers, the algorithm to send it out to more people. So I really like that. Where do you think Twitter's at an interesting time right now with Elon having just taken it over and literally asking people hey, what do you want here? What can we do? And I don't know if you saw MKBHD's video. It was published yesterday. It was called Dear Twitter. And he basically said, hey, I like Twitter, and I do see MKBHD on Twitter. In fact, he's been on the show before, and we connected on Twitter. That's how powerful Twitter can be. And like you said, there's a lot of powerful people there, celebrities, artists, musicians, top people in your field are there, and they're just accessible, and you could or could not capture attention, potentially. Anyway, he had this video come out and basically outline how Elon or the team at Twitter could make Twitter more valuable, not just charging for a check mark, but maybe access to more creator tools or the ability to have, videos be shown in certain ways and to certain people. So it's just really interesting. Where do you think Twitter is headed for us creators who are marketers, who are using it? Is it worth kind of paying closer attention to in case new things come out, or is it just more of a distraction at this point?
Yeah, I think love him or hate him. I know there's a lot of haters, Elon haters. I think he's largely been a net positive. That's my opinion in terms of kind of what he's done.
I see that, yeah.
And so the fact that he's out there kind of asking for feedback right now is good, right? I think I had a friend that wrote a post. So his name's also Pat, and he sold his pricing company, Profitwell, and he just broke down the math. He's like, hey, Elon, if you do these creator tools, or if you do these analytics, or you have access, here's another 100 million in ARR, or annual recurring revenue. Here's another 300 million in ARR. And then it all adds up, all these other services add up to about $1 billion a year or something like that in new annual recurring revenue. And so at that point, you're talking about something that's really serious. So I think Twitter's going to get a lot better. I'm excited for where it's going to go, because I don't know if you agree with this, but in the last 10 years or so, it's largely been the same tool. It's been this, it's kind of fallen behind. But I think if put into the right hands, and I hope Elon hires the right people, I think it's going to be largely a boon for creators. Yeah,
I agree with that. He's definitely been on a firing sort of, he's been firing a lot of people, but also is hiring. And it, again, is encouraging, because you're right, Twitter has remained kind of the same. It's a very unique social platform, and I enjoy it. That's where I hang out most, actually, even beyond Instagram. And, we'll see. But I like it as a way, per Alex Hermosi's tactics, to just openly share things with very little consequence as far as ideas and opinions, and obviously use common sense. But it can be a great place to discover what you could create elsewhere and what might be gaining steam. I created some stuff recently on Twitter that took off related to community. We were talking about community. We'll get into that in just a second. I think things are moving toward private communities in the marketing space and just in general for brands, because places like Facebook and these other sandboxes that have their own rules that change them at any moment. And it's a dangerous game to not just build an audience, but build a community of people and have somebody else own that community. You need to own it like you own your email list. And that's why I also agree that community is what we should be focusing on. So maybe if there aren't any more platforms that we should look at for brand awareness, let's imagine we bring awareness in that capacity. And yes, we're building an audience, but where do we take those people? How are you imagining community to be a part of a brand, and why is that important?
If I go back in time, when I look at the communities I've been a part of, so I've been fortunate to join communities. So there's one called Entrepreneurs Organization. I was in that one for about 7 years. And then I've been in Young Presidents Organization. That's YPO in the last 2.5 years or so. And I've gone to these amazing events like TED, right? Or Singularity University. And that's all that to say is like, I've also been in other masterminds too. So I've seen the magic that happens. It's really, people talk about increasing your surface level of luck, right? It's about these serendipitous opportunities that pop up. And so yesterday, actually, at the event that I did in Beverly Hills, someone texted me. I did this event in August, and one of the speakers that texted me, her name's Kimberly, and then she said that like, from one of the ideas, like she started running this quiz and she decided to throw up a video on TikTok yesterday, and she thought she might have get like 5 responses on her quiz, but 80,000 people responded to the quiz. And she's like, this totally changed my business, right? So it's really, sometimes you just meet someone and they have exactly what you need, or they'll just give you that one idea that will completely change your business or like whatever it is that you're working on. But like-minded people want to hang out with like-minded people. Motivated people want to hang out with motivated people. And so to be able to create that forum for them is just insanely valuable, because as you start to rise higher and higher, like the air gets thinner. And so I've just seen it happen time and time again, and people long for this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about this in my book, Superfans, in 2018. I knew this was coming, and here we are. And now you have tools like Circle, which I'm a big fan of and also an advisor for, to build these private communities on. My question to you is, for a brand that's out there that's listening right now, they have an audience, but don't have a community yet. What would be maybe their first steps, or how might they go about actually building a community?
There's a really good example of let's just use our community, right? When we started out in the very beginning, so our group we cap it at 100 people, and that's our back end group, right? I'm happy to explain that later. But we also have a front end group for people that are maybe a little earlier in their business career. The idea is, when you're first starting a group out, you might have to invite some people for free. So for example, Pat, I might say, like, hey, for the first like 20 to 30 people, I'm going to invite some real like badasses, and they can come for free. And then maybe you have like 10 or 20 people that are maybe paying like a real, like an introductory fee. So let's say at the very end, you want to charge 25 grand a year for like a mastermind, which is a high price, right? Maybe you might say, hey, for the first 10 or so, you charge 5 grand for the year, or like 2,500 for the year. And then maybe the next 10, you go up in price more, and you just go up in price more. And then eventually the group will become full, and there's going to be a waiting list. And then you can start charging the new people the full amount. But I think most people try to just look at, like these masterminds charge like 36 grand or 50 grand. I should just do that immediately. But you don't really have a community yet. And so you have to seed it with amazing people. And then maybe you can charge some people, and then start to slowly increase the pricing. And then other than that, it's a lot of hand-to-hand combat in terms of reaching out to people. And, again, like people are going to ask, who's actually in the group? Like, what is this group about? You just have to decide like what your unique selling point is there.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me for higher level groups, especially ones that you charge a lot more for, it's the relationships that count, right? It's very difficult to just have, for example, an audience of followers on Twitter and just be like, hey guys, I'm starting this mastermind group. Come join me and pay, $8,000 a year to be a part of it. You have to get to know those people in a way first. So this is why you'd mentioned like a front end group. Maybe it's a lower cost group that people can join who just want to connect and in a filtered space with like-minded people. And then from that group is where you might find the top players to kind of come into a bigger program. And we have literally the same thing in SPI. We launched with our SPI Pro community in 2020. These are for established business owners. We now have a front end group, the learner community, which is a lot lower price, but it's for the beginners in the audience to train them and get them to the point where they could upgrade to SPI Pro. And then inside of SPI Pro, we, through invite only, have invited people to our SPI MBA program, a much higher level program for those who are ready for that at that level of business. And most people don't even know that exists, because that's sort of a insider group for people who we invite who we know would be right for that situation. So we're right there with you as well. We haven't quite gotten to the multi tens of thousands of dollars mastermind level yet, but we could probably end up there at one point. What kind of value are you providing at that level? Let's say you're charging $20K a year. What is expected in a group like that?
By the way, have you had Sam Ovens on this podcast?
I have not.
Okay. If you're down, I'm happy to make an introduction, or if you know him already. I think so. The reason I'm going to call this out is because like he shared some of the numbers, and I'm going to share it on this podcast, and I'll let him decide if he wants to. If you guys do a podcast, he can extend on it.
Okay.
Back in the day, we just had this video go on YouTube, my YouTube channel, but back in the day, consulting.com, which is his main course business, was doing about $36 million a year, and $6 million of it was profit. So like a lot of it was going towards ads, and he had, a big fat payroll, right? Like, like a lot of people on the team, and it was just driving him nuts. And so he's like, okay, so how do I drive the most value here? And how do I drive the most profit while like not putting in as much time? And so what he decided to do instead of having 55 people on the team, was let's have 3 people on the team. Let's focus on masterminds only. So community aspect, right? And so now collectively, I think he does about like, I don't know, $5 or $6 million in profit. The top line is maybe like, $1 million or $2 billion more than that. And this is all public, but he lives a much simpler life. And so just to share some numbers on his before I go into like the value of our community, his front end mastermind is like $10,000. And then his back end mastermind, where there's only 100 people, is $36,000. And so like, that's the whole thing that he's kind of like pushing people on right now. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And I definitely think it makes a lot of sense for you. So I'll talk about ours. For us, in terms of the value, so the last event, it's amazing speakers. So I just mentioned like, Alex Hormozi, Layla Hormozi, Cody Sanchez, Eamon, who's the CEO of, took AppSummit from 3 to 80 million. So like, you get the point, like good speakers, right? But when we sent a survey afterwards, we had asked everyone like, okay, rate the event 1 through 10. Okay, 9.7. Okay, that's fine. That's great. Grateful for that. But what is the most value that you got? What's the most valuable thing that you got from the event? And virtually, like, I think it's like 90 to 95% of people said it's the people. And so in the audience itself, we had people that founded Comic-Con. We had a YouTube dancer that has like 13 million subs. And we just had like a lot of people that have done really amazing things. Like someone has like a crypto hedge fund, a lot of EO people, a lot of YPO people that I mentioned earlier, people I met from TED. So my job is I love curating the right people, right? So it's really the audience that rose above even the speakers themselves. My podcast co-host, Neil Patel, is in the group as well, right? So it's just really high caliber people. And because I'm curating everyone, like I'm making sure that we keep the quality high, and it's only 100 people. There's that sense of exclusivity. There's like everyone you're going to talk to, like they're the best in the game, at their level, whatever it is that they're doing. And then you have amazing speakers sharing amazing insights. But the other thing is this, I don't focus it on mostly programming, because I remember earlier this year, I went to a investors conference called Capital Camp, and each day they only had like 2 speakers speaking 45 minutes, and the rest of it was just people connecting with each other throughout the night, right? And that was like, that moment I was like, okay, this is what it's all about. It's not about the speakers, because we can see that stuff on YouTube. The speakers can be the draw, but the people, that's what it's all about.
So how many times are you meeting per year to bring these people together?
So for our group, it's 2 times live a year. So the Q1 in Miami, and then Q3 would be in LA.
Okay. So you have speakers there. So there is that's a part of the package. It's filtered access to high level people like them, like-minded people. So you're doing that job to bring those people together. I mean, is it like $36,000 per year to have 2 events and just like contact information?
Yeah, there's a little more than that. So that's a good point. So there's also an aspect of deal flow, right? So I mentioned earlier that I do early stage investing. So I've invested in some cool companies. These were more later stage, like Lime, you would know, Betterment, you would know. Those were late stage deals. I use a sleep tech called 8 Sleep. So 8 Sleep, I invested in like an online school that's kind of taken after like Elon Musk in terms of how he trains his kids, called Synthesis. And so I get access to really good deals. That's not to brag. It's to say, if you want to win when it comes to angel investing, it comes down to deal flow, right? So I'm actually sharing that deal flow, and they can decide if they want to participate or not. And then actually we have an active, you talk about Circle, we're using Sam Ovens' group called School. Inside of School, people are, sharing, kind of their challenges, or sharing something that they've learned, or they might be sharing other opportunities in there. So that community is ongoing. And then we get together, live in person 2 times a year. And then the other thing too is when I'm actually personally onboarding every single person, because there's only 100 people. And so I'm trying to understand what it is that they're trying to get for the year, and then trying to make those connections too. So it's, in addition to like the network, it's like, what else can I do to maximize their experience?
Right. So I'm signing up not just because there's these 2 events during the year. I'm not just signing up because I know there's going to be other cool people there, but I know that you are going to help me achieve my goals, right? Through whether deal flow or getting access to these special investment opportunities, or making connections to the right people because now you know what I'm looking for and you probably know somebody who might be able to fulfill that for me. And that is definitely a value. And so I wanted to bring that in because for people listening, getting access to TikTokers with, millions of followers or the founder of Comic-Con might seem way out of reach. It's like, well, I don't know those kinds of people, but you probably know more than you think, and you probably have the ability to help people achieve their goals if you really knew what they were looking for and you had that drive. And I think that comes with high value, absolutely, and that's something you could absolutely charge for as well. So again, all this to continue to beat this down on you is the relationships. It's who you know. It's get out there, meet people, connect on podcasting. I know the podcast has done a lot for you as far as like who you meet and who you get to know. And it's the same thing for me. That's how I've gotten to know people like Gary Vaynerchuk and Tim Ferriss and such. Like just having the podcast alone is valuable for that reason, let alone all these other brand awareness opportunities that are there too. So I appreciate that. Maybe somebody's listening to this and they're not quite yet at that level, or they're just getting started. They don't have those connections yet. Is building a community of people just like them of value?
Yeah. So I actually started building a community when I was like 26 or 27 years old. What I mean by that is I was broke. And so when I was broke, I actually got a group of marketing directors at my place in LA, and we got together. It was like 7 or 8 of us. And I remember I was so broke that the only thing we had to eat was my half-eaten bag of chips. And so there's a time and place for everyone, right? And I think it's about, hey, like we're going to get together and we're going to talk about what's working well, what isn't working well. So at the time, it's like I didn't have a business. So it's like, okay, well, let's talk about what's working well in the world of marketing. And then we can share knowledge share, and then we can make connections. What I like to do when it's like a small little mastermind like that's how I started to build my network, was I said, okay, number one, tell us who you are. So we're doing a round of introductions, who you are, what you do. One, brag. So talk about like something that you're really good at so we can understand what your superpower is. And then one thing you need, right? And that's always, we still continue to use that format today, even in the mastermind itself. But as you start to continue to do this, you become the connector and you become used to doing this. And then you can start throwing happy hours. You can start throwing dinners as well. And you can get sponsors for the happy hours or the dinners. You don't have to come out of pocket. Then eventually, as you start to become more successful, you can pay out of your out of pocket yourself. And so that's how I've grown over the years, where like, now like we do dinners with like 40 people or so, or we'll do like masterminds, or we'll do events with hundreds of people. But you slowly level up, and everyone starts at the very bottom, right? And you know how the game is played.
Yeah. How did you initially attract those marketing directors when A, you were broke, B, they didn't really know who you were yet? How do you capture their attention? Because that is of massive value to bring a room of those kinds of people together. I mean, how are you able to convince them to come? Yeah.
So let's say, Pat, like we're starting out right now. Somehow like I met you at an event and we hit it off, but you kind of don't know what I'm all about. Maybe I'm like a nobody, but you think I'm nice, right? And so what if I hit you up, Pat, and I'm like, hey, I'm getting a group of people together, and they're all entrepreneurs, they're all doing 7 to 9 figures, and like they're all really good marketers. Like, don't worry, like I'll take care of the bill. Like, what would you say to that offer?
I mean, that's I want connections to other entrepreneurs like that. So that sounds very attractive to me.
Yeah. So that's basically what I did, except it's like I said, it's a group of marketing directors, and like they're at this stage. And don't worry, I'll take care of everything. Just come to my house. I didn't say we're gonna
here's some chips.
Yeah, I didn't say we're gonna eat anything. So I never promised that. So.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because again, going down to, well, what is of value to the people who are going to be there? At certain levels, it's access to other people like them. And you don't necessarily need to be known to be able to create an opportunity for that to happen. It's just somebody has to step up to organize it. And that's exactly what you did. How does one get over the fear of doing that and the sort of limiting beliefs that come along with trying something like that?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think imposter syndrome is a good thing. And that's why like I'm so incentivized to over deliver on the mastermind itself. But even in this scenario, I was so nervous that I wouldn't do a good job that I was just Googling a ton on how to do a great mastermind, right? So I came across this PDF called Mastermind Talks or Mastermind Dinners by Jason Gaignard, who's now a friend, and you might know him too. There's this entire PDF on like, here's how you should run it. Here's the questions you should ask. Here's like the whole agenda. So like, I made a really nice agenda. I sent it to everyone ahead of time. I printed everything out. I just wanted to make sure that I over delivered. And usually what happens is the imposter syndrome inspires you to over deliver, and you find that everything is, you shoot for the stars, you land on the moon.
What have you got to lose also, right? That's the other thing. Like, what's the worst that can happen? It's not anywhere near what the best that could happen could be. So
yeah, I don't think any of these things have really failed for me before. Like, it's always turned out pretty good at the very least.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. So as we wrap up here, first of all, I want to have people be directed to the podcast that you are at so that people can go from this podcast to yours. Where would you recommend they go? And do you also have like a favorite episode that you recommend they listen to?
Yeah. So there's the Marketing School podcast. That's the one that I do with Neil. Yeah. I mean, my favorite ones are usually when we talk about trends or like different tools. So you can check that one out. And then, yeah, we'll just focus on that podcast.
Nice. Cool. So Marketing School, and Neil's been on the show before. It's been a pleasure to have you on as well. Now that we're into 2023, what would be your number one tip for winning with marketing this year?
I think marketing and business in general, I think for the next 12 to 24 months, it's actually an M&A angle. So what I mean by that is, how do you go out there and either buy businesses, or how can you go out there and buy attention? Because I think there's a lot of businesses, like even today, we saw that FTX was just acquired by Binance, the big crypto exchange.
So M&A meaning mergers and acquisitions, right?
Correct. Mergers and acquisitions. So there's going to be a lot of deals that are coming up. So I actually invested in a company called MicroAcquire, which is now called Acquire. And so like, they're not paying me to say this, but you can actually, it's almost like Zillow for M&A. You can find good business deals on there, right? And you can buy them. I think you're going to be able to buy these companies at a fire sale price. And I want people, marketers listening to this, as well as business owners, to be like, okay, you can look at buying a business from like a cash perspective, but also some of these businesses have good traffic. Like they have good SEO traffic. They have an email list as well. Although you probably can't use the email list, they have a machine that's working from a marketing standpoint that you can maybe take and plug into whatever it is that you're doing. And maybe you can go out there, maybe go direct. Like maybe there's a YouTube channel that you want to partner up with, or like a podcast, something like that, right? But I think not enough people do that. I think we're going to see a lot more of this activity, not just in the next 1 to 2 years, but like forever.
Love it. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate you for coming on the show, and we'll make sure to drop all the links in the show notes for everybody.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that episode and conversation with Eric. Eric is an absolute wealth of knowledge. You can follow him again at the Marketing School podcast, along with his partner, Neil, or you can check out marketingschool.io. Eric, thank you so much for coming on today and setting us up for success this year. We probably talked about more things than you need, but pick and choose from the couple things that were most exciting and perhaps most interesting to you. You might be at a stage where a merger and acquisition might be in your future, which you could check out those resources that were mentioned. Speaking of resources, if you go to smartpassiveincome.com/session643, again, smartpassiveincome.com/session643, that'll take you to the show notes and all the things and links and resources mentioned today. On top of that, you might be ready for LinkedIn, and there's a big opportunity there as well. And using that for brand awareness, I like the idea of just using that to put your name out there, get people to know what you're about so that you almost attract those people toward you when they need your services. And then it's almost a done deal right from the start. So Eric, thank you so much again. Marketing School is the podcast you should check out and listen to. And I'll be on that show very shortly too. So maybe by the time you listen to this, I'll be there and you can listen to us talk about everything from YouTube to other things that are working in the SPI world too. So we talked a lot about community today. And as always, we are here to support you. And if you'd like to get involved with other like-minded entrepreneurs like yourself, I highly recommend you check out our community page, smartpassiveincome.com/community. We have a lot of offerings there for you to help you come together with other people like you to support each other, hold each other accountable, and support each other and bring that inspiration. It's awesome what happens when you bring some amazing people together. And we're just very grateful for all of our members as well. And especially big welcome to all the members of our new All Access Pass. That is something that allows you to get access to our courses, multiple courses, as well as guided pathways and our team to help you through those courses as well. When you really do the economics of it, it's the lowest price available to get into any of our courses. You get access to all of them. So check it out, smartpassiveincome.com/all access, no spaces, smartpassiveincome.com/all access. Anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Here's to you in a successful and profitable and healthy and happy year 2023. Here we are. Cheers. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Thanks for listening to the Smart Passive Income podcast at smartpassiveincome.com. I'm your host, Pat Flynn. Our senior producer is David Grabowski. Our series producer is Paul Gregoris. And our executive producer is Matt Garland. Sound editing by Duncan Brown. The Smart Passive Income podcast is a production of SPI Media. We'll catch you in the next session. More people dream about building their own business and being their own boss rather than retiring early. But a majority of them never even take the first steps to register the business. Why? Because starting a business can feel overwhelming. With legal forms, paperwork, finances, it's a lot. And that's where Taylor Brands comes in. Taylor is a complete business builder designed to make launching your business simple and stress-free. You can register your LLC in just minutes, keeping your personal and business assets separate from day one. And from there, you can get access to everything you need to get off the ground, from legal documents, licenses and permits, invoicing and bookkeeping tools, and even a 100-day business coaching program to help you hit the ground running. You'll also get a free personalized business plan, branding tools, and so much more. And of course, our listeners get an exclusive 35% discount to get started. Just head to tailorbrands.com/SPI. That's TAILORBRANDS.com/SPI. Stop dreaming, start building with Tailor Brands. I get it. You want to grow your business, but selling at scale feels overwhelming. You're drowning in complicated funnels, creating different lead magnets, or constantly posting on social media. And that gets exhausting fast, especially when you're trying to sell to hundreds or thousands of people. But what if you could sell at scale with a simple, powerful quiz? A score app quiz or assessment asks your audience key questions and gives them instant personalized results based on their answers. Your audience gets to know where they are now and shows them the steps they need to hit their goals. You can set up a quiz in minutes using Score App's templates and have a powerful lead magnet that'll do the selling for you. The best part is your audience actually wants to take this quiz, and you build huge amounts of trust before you even make a single offer. No hard sales, no chasing leads, just value at scale. Get 50% off the first 3 months using the discount code SPI. Just head to scoreapp.com/SPI. Again, that's scoreapp.com/SPI.